So good day everyone. So for today's lesson, I will talk about the art history lesson 3, which is medieval art and architecture in medieval period. So when we say medieval period, is approximately from the 5th to the late 15th centuries, similarly to the post-classical period of the global history. It began with the fall of the Western Roman Empire and transitioned in the Renaissance and the Age of Discovery. So medieval period known for the period of European history between the fall of the Roman Empire and the beginning of the Renaissance and are sometimes referred to as the Dark Ages. So when we say the Dark Ages, is a term for the early Middle Ages in the area of the Roman Empire in Europe after its fall in the 5th century, characterizing it as marked by economic, intellectual, and cultural decline. All through the medieval period, art largely consisted of the architectural designs and constructed of churches, monasteries, castles, and similar electric structure. So sa medieval period is makita na to nga kanang gina-focus gid nila ang mga churches, monastery, castles, and similar electric structures sa ilang mga architectural designs, sila mga arts sa medieval period, while ang buildings and houses is wala kanila gi priority. So medieval art illustrate the passionate interest, and idealistic expression of the Christian and Catholic faith. Diba? So makita gid nato nga nagi sila passion and interest on how the art kanang ilang ginapakita sa church. And then, architectural designs and their interior decor shown avid expressions of the deep religious faith of the people of the Middle Ages. So, diri nga, di ba, makita ito sa Middle Ages nga, grabe kay sila ka-dedicated sa church. So, bisag, ang ilang art is ginapakita na jud nila sa church. And then, because ang church pod is gaserve sila as a center of their town life. So, let's proceed sa medieval art is gidivide siya into different types. So, first is the Byzantine period. Second is the early Christian period. Third is the Romanesque and Norman period. And lastly, the Gothic period. So, in Byzantine art, 4th to 15th century is generally characterized by a move away from the naturalism of the classical tradition towards the more abstract and universal. There is a definite preference for two-dimensional representation, and those artworks which contain a religion message predominate. However, by the 12th century CE, Byzantine art has become much more expressive and imaginative, and although many subjects are endlessly recycled, there are differences in detail throughout the period. So makita na to sa Byzantine period nga ang mga tao is gagamit og mga recycled materials para maka-create og art sa ilang church, di ba? And then ang mga recycled is mo ang gagamit nila is ang mga stones, bright stones, gold mosaic, lively wall paintings, intricately carved ivory, and previous metals in general. So sa Byzantine art po is gina-beautify nila ang everything nga ilang ginabuhat from building, gikan sa building paingon sa books. Pero ang ilang yung pinaka-greatest lasting legacy is kanang ilang gina-decorate ang church all around the world. So, mo ni ang ginabuhat sa Byzantine period. So, sa makita na to sa image, mo na ang ilang image nga ilang gina-decorate sa church. So, di ba sa first picture is makita na to ang ang ilahang ang picture nga na si Jesus Christ and ang mga apostles. And then sa second page, mo ni siya ang second picture is mo ni siya makita na to ang the birth of our Lord. So let's proceed to the early Christian period. So early Christian art 330 to 880 was developed to some extent in countries bounding the eastern Mediterranean region, but primarily in central Italy. Churches and monuments were constructed with stones found in the ruins of of pagan temples. The early Christian art forms undeveloped after the people of the Roman Empire officially adapted in Christianity. So, sa early Christian period is ang mga Roman Empire is nagpa-convert into Christianity. As Christianity gained converts, these new Christians had been brought up on the value of images in their previous cultural experience. So, ginashare sa mga sa Roman Empire ang ilang mga value and images and culture sa ilang mga previous experience then. For instance, there was a change in burial practices in the Roman world, away from cremation to inhumation. Outside the city walls of Rome, adjacent to a major road, catacombs were dug in the ground to bury the dead. Families would have chambers or cubicula dug to bury their members. So, napakita diri sa early Christian period, nag-change ang ilang kanang practices sa ilang burial practices. So, ang naandan mo nila is ang cremation, then ilan yung i-change into humation. So, ilan ang ginalubong sa yuta sa ground. Then, wealthy Romans would also have sarcophagi or marble tombs carved with their burial. So, mo ang sa picture is ng sarcophagus of Juanius Bassos ngayang gikuan. So Juanius Bassos, a Roman prefectus or high-ranking government administrator, died in 329 CE. Scholars believe that he converted to Christianity shortly before his death, accounting for the inclusion of the Christ and scenes from the Bible. So ang add po nako sa early Christian is ang mga kwan sa sarcophagi is mga richer Christian. Muna siya. So let's proceed to the Romanesque and Norman period. So in this period, form 800 to 1150 were developed in France and other Western religion. They are characterized by simple structural form with window and door opening design with similar circular arc top section. The term Romanesque arc refers to medieval styles of art that were greatly influenced by Italy and southern France. So, mo nilang ginabuhat sa Romanesque and Norman period, di ba? Castle. So, and kaning isa is kanang structural form with window and door opening design with semicircular arc top sections. So, mo ni siya. Mga pictures. So Romanesque buildings were huge, strong, but they had simple surface enrichment showcase the simplistic ways of life of the planners who were monks. So sa ang ilang ginabuhat is mga simple lang pero dako siya. So di ba ang castle is dako man jud, di ba, huge. Then so let's proceed to the Gothic period. So ang Gothic in general is kuan siya, ang ilang art design is in vertical. So, verticality is emphasized in Gothic art and architecture, di ba? So, emphasize ang sa Gothic period ang vertical. So, Gothic art evolved from Romanesque art and lasted from the mid-12th century to as late as the end of the 16th century in some areas. It is called Gothic because he thought buildings from the Middle Ages were not carefully planned and measured like Renaissance buildings or the buildings of ancient Rome. So ilang ginato, di ba, sa una ang Gothic is kanang mga dili mga unplanned ang mga measurements. And then the Goths were a so-called barbaric tribe who held power in various regions in Europe between the collapse of Roman Empire and the establishment of the Holy Roman Empire. The most fundamental elements of Gothic style of architecture is the pointed arch. So makita nato sa picture nga, di ba, nice kayong ilang mga ang architectural design kay kanang more on ga point jud siya. So mo ni ang mga art sa Gothic styles sa Gothic period. So the pointed arc relieves some of the thrust and therefore the stress of the other structural elements. it then became possible to reduce the size of the column of pairs that supports the arc. Accordingly, rather than having massive drum-like columns, as in the Romanesque churches, the new column could be more slender. The slimness was repeated in the upper level of an ave, so that the gallery of clerestory would not seem to overpower the lower arcade. In fact, the column basically continued all the way to the roof and became part of the vault, according to Spanswick to 2020. So, in addition, ang Gothic period is wala siya gi in addition, so ang Gothic period is wala gi-recognize ang ilang achievements sa ilang greatest achievements sa architecture. In fact, sa history time, gigamit siya. So, thank you everyone for listening and God bless us all.